Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eye on Icon. Today I'm here with my co-host, Fez. Fez, welcome to the show. How are ya?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm loving it. Hand gestures in the intro as well. This is fantastic.
It's been a while. It's been a
We're
while,
so
and
we're so out of touch.
I know. And actually quite excited to be back.
Mm.
Just you and me talking about Icon ecosystem stuff and sharing it with our listeners. Some insights, maybe some
Mm.
stuff that others hadn't seen or didn't know yet. So hopefully an entertaining 30 minutes, which usually turns into 1 hour.
Yeah.
We'll see how far we go. How have you been? And are there any pressing matters that you want to address?
I've been good. It's been busy. Pressing matters, yes, a lot of pressing matters. But so it was great. We actually got to see each other in person. The whole foundation team caught up. We had a workshop. I'm actually I'm not going to talk about that. I think when we do a session later in the month with Min can really go into detail about that. So we'll let him tackle
Yep.
that. We today are going to zone in on, so some of the community have been asking a little bit more detail of what the board represents and how things, where they're at and what it actually means.
Yep.
So we've been getting, David, these dev updates, and it shows we're shipping shipping and a lot's being worked on at the same time, right? So sometimes in the dev updates, just not as easy to uh, keep expanding on what's actually happening or the true state of affairs or what this actually means as a wider piece, right? Who could benefit from it? What does it really mean for the user or for a DApp builder? At what stage is it? Like, there's so many different interpretations of things. So
Yes.
I thought, let's spend some time. We'll go through the integrations board, like time as in 10 minutes. I'll highlight a few things, what's actually being done. I'll actually share some hurdles that we're encountering, that you may hear a lot of frustration in my voice. Like I'm big, I want to get things out, get things moving, and then these little silly nagging things come along and just stall, and I get very agitated by it, because like I don't mind if we're at a stage and something big happens and there's a delay. It's like, okay, this is just, we have to deal with it. But when some niggly thing that out of left field comes through, that really grinds my gears. So we'll talk through some of those frustrations, and then I think jump over to you, David, and you can take us through some of the cool stuff you and Rook have been doing.
Yeah. I think I've got you in for 20 minutes of therapy, so I guess we can start ASAP, and we'll just talk through the through those niggling frustrations. When you talk about the board, you're talking about the integrations board, which is
Yeah.
kind of a live overview of what's happening with Icon development. So we've got the dev update once every month. There is a newsletter going out every month. Please like and subscribe. Wouldn't know how you like a newsletter, but I think you can on Substack. And if you go to the website, you can actually scroll down to the highlighted connections block on the main page, where it does say view integrations. If you click that button, you end up on the board that Fez is now showing. So that's the integrations board, and there's a lot of development happening, a lot of completed integrations as well. But indeed, look, I agree. When I read sometimes the names on the board, or like the little titles, I read the dev update. Me as a non, technical dev wouldn't immediately know, what's
Mm.
going on here.
Yeah, and I'm by no means a technical dev, but I do have good understanding and oversight of what is being built as a whole and how
Yeah,
it can be used. So,
and to that point, like, what would a non-technical dev look like?
me starting my chat GPT.
That's like,
I still haven't gone further.
oh, your LinkedIn, like full stack dev, non-technical. And I just talk about it.
Yeah, that's right. I get what you're saying, but I'd need a dev to actually
Yeah.
execute this. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I should
Yeah,
say a
two
project
non-technical
manager.
devs looking at an integrations board. Okay, go. What's cooking?
Okay. So in a nutshell, uh, I'll start with some of the completed ones. So when we say xcall, this is literally the xcall contract. Okay, so generally, many of these chains, there's Solidity, Rust, Java, and now Move. So every time we go to a new chain that is a different language, three things always have to happen, which is translation of the Xcall contract, the relay. So generally now, as we're pushing forward, we're using, we need to relabel the centralized relay, but the relay, which the relay is the core infrastructure that connects ICON to other chains. Basically, it's a bridge. It's like BTP, IBC, that's what this relay, centralized relay, represents. So we have to build modules for that relay in those languages. And then the final piece is for balance, because obviously if we're connecting, the goal is to get balance out there. We need to translate 3 balance contracts, which are known as the Xcall manager contract, or GMP manager contract, bnUSD minter contract, and the asset manager contract. So in general, these are the 3 pillars that have to happen every time we go to a new chain.
Yeah.
For a long time, though, like over here, even though it's being cut out, we were working on the IBC. That was a full implementation of the IBC stack in Java, and we were rebuilding quite a few things to make ICON compatible with IBC. So that was very different. We did those large builds. We did the adapters, which was about making Xcall compatible, which is great because as we gain a bit of traction, we can then get ourselves added to Wormhole and Layer 0, and we already then have these adapters built that are ICON GMP is compatible. So that work's done. It's not benefiting at the moment, but it will. Then the final piece now is we've got the Xcall 2.1, which is the next feature set. Now, by this, when I say feature set, like Xcall 2.1, I couldn't even tell you the extra new features in there. I would need Anton to really lay it out, but there's a bunch of functionality that's missing. And it is strictly that Xcall will now be compatible with these new features. It doesn't mean that these features are ready and the code is made for DApps to use. So like an example here is Xcall exists on both chains, whatever 2.0, 2.1 with all its new features. But then the actual DApp that wants to send the message has to write the particular message that they need to send, and then tap into the features that Xcall allow, whether it be a rollback, a failsafe, or this or that. Xcall allows it, but then the actual builder would then tap into these features and build that functionality into their messaging and what they wanted to do.
Right. And isn't this like common practice for apps going cross-chain?
Yes. We're not doing something new. It's common, yes. So usually they'll build the infrastructure, and then there'll be a lot of tutorials and things on how you can use it, the messages, and these are what the features mean.
Yeah.
And then the builders will go and build and start making use of those features.
And balanced as flagship application using all the feature sets of icons. Xcall is using this?
Well, good question. So no, it isn't. And this is part of why the partnership and the enshrinements really work, because we built this infrastructure, being the relay, Xcall, etc. Now we've also built balance to utilize this infrastructure with the messages and stuff. And as we were implementing it, especially for Archway, Anton went back to the drawing board and said, okay, now I have built these messages to use the Xcall, and this is how the messages are being passed. What are some extra pieces that are missing that would be a nice to have? And this is where then a bit of feedback from the testnet incentivization and things came through going, hey, this CCTP, the chain link, they do it this way, they do it this way. So Anton kind of looked at all of this and go, okay, so we can add, based on how Xcall works at the moment, we could implement these 3 features, which is rollback and a couple of other things. And that's how 2.1 was born, because we actually built a protocol, built it and we realized we could benefit from these additional things.
Yes. Yeah. So, okay, so that's, you're talking about the feedback loop that you get because balance, because because the Icon network is enshrined balanced, and balanced is like pushing forward on the frontier of our tech. It kind of turns around and says, if the tech could do this or that, that would be great for us and all projects to follow us. And then we go ahead and we improve it. So we're going to see an XCall 2.2, 2.3, 3.0.
Remember, it's a messaging standard, and it does a particular thing. There's only so many
much
features. Yeah, exactly, because everything else will be the DApps being innovated. So okay, so I'll stop there and then keep going. So now majority of the work, as I said, is centered around these three pillars: relay, XCall, and the balance contract translations. When it comes to just addressing some questions, NFT messages and stuff, XCall's there now. Like, Craft had been, what I assumed through CPS, was working on messages. XCall beat, I don't know, but in theory, that because now everything's connected, they could then start building the unique messages to send NFTs, etc. Have they? I don't know. This is stuff we need. Well, you'd go to the Craft Discord and ask. But just to elaborate on that, this is not me dissing on Craft. It's just, I want to make it very clear that the infrastructure is there, the actual messages, and it just doesn't happen. Like the DApps then have to build that to take advantage of it. Yeah. Okay, so that's this is all the completed stuff. So what do we have in the pipeline? So you can see a lot of balanced work. So to be clear, with the integrations board, the balanced work has started. I've started adding that on there, but I want to draw a line that this integration board only covers the smart contract balanced work.
Right.
Okay. I view smart contract and front end work as they're two separate pieces. There are teams working on it. Obviously, Parrot9 does a lot of the front end work, and we actually work very closely with them now. But this board at the moment just covers the smart contract pieces because. Just because I can, just because at this point,
it's just what it is, accept it.
No, look, at the end of the day, like this front end work is happening for all these pieces. Obviously, it's just the front end work. Obviously, with what happened with Balance in the past, now everyone's aggressively working through it. But there's a lot of refactoring and things happening in the background. And once this is done, which I'm hoping end of April, we'll start to see some of these front end ship. Then we'll see the front end start to catch up with all the deployments. But rolling it back, the current one, all these cards represent smart contracts. In general, smart contracts for Solidity, Rust, and Java for Balance, the three contracts that I mentioned earlier, they are good. They're done. So if we find a chain that we want to deploy on, we can actually get the smart contracts and get Balance live on those chains, which we are doing. So that's why you've seen Avalanche, Binance Smart Chain, Injective, the votes are going on at the moment. Harvard just got deployed and the contracts are on there. And soon, as you can see from this board, which I'm kind of excited to talk about, is Ethereum and 3 layer 2s, and we'll dive into that in a moment. But David, since I'm educating you here, any questions around that front?
No. If anything, I thought I'd clarify a bit more in to make it understandable that the front end. When you talk about the front end work, you're essentially talking about the website. You're talking about the balance.network website being updated to show new functionality, whereas when you talk about the smart contracts, you're talking about the underlying code or the engine, so to speak, that powers Balanced. Because, and this is then something that a listener can wrap his head around, anyone could come in, look at the smart contracts that are on the blockchain that are called Balanced, and build their own website to use those smart contracts. Is that correct? So you could launch fezswap.com, and you could just powered by Balanced. That would just be the smart contracts, like the underlying code. Is that correct?
Yes, but Yes, you're right. And there's certain functions that can be built quite easily. But so for the front end, for example, with Balance, it's actually not just the front end website, it's the core interactions that happen between, a button click and all the logic in the background that needs to happen and interact before it gets
Yeah,
a smart contract, etc. So it is actually quite a complicated process, especially
right.
when you then start slapping in there that, oh, it's not just icon. So when this button is being hit, this is doing this, an XCall message is being sent there, it's fetching this data from this chain. It
Yeah,
amplifies a way of complexity. So yeah, but yes, dialing it back, I just didn't want it to think, oh no, front end is super easy. It's quite a lot of hard work. Yeah,
yeah. So no, to display the full capability of the balanced engine, of the balanced smart contracts in a front end, it is super complex, and that's what we're seeing on the balanced.network website. What I was alluding to is that fezswap.com would only enable swaps between ICX and Archway. That would be the only functionality that fezswap.com does. ICX Archway. See, you could build that, right? You could launch that website and just only tap into that functionality, and then under the hood, it would be balanced powering that. But above board on the website, it could be a completely different experience, and that's kind of the difference between the front end and then the smart contract back end. So yeah, just there's that. So yeah, you were excited. You were getting excited, which is always great.
Okay. So what you would have started to notice, right? The reason as well we've started just pushing with the smart contract deployments is, well, majority of the chains we're deploying to, the goal is to acquire liquidity. The ICON network, Michael Sayer, is going to be buying a whole bunch of assets. So it actually made sense. Well, let's get the contracts out and because it's live. This is not just because the front end isn't ready, you can't use it, as you were saying. We've got the contracts, and let's have the network just start buying liquidity. Yes, no one can interact with these contracts. Barely any trading will happen, but that's a good thing because it's giving us a little bit of time to acquire liquidity. And at least when we have a front end ready, most of the pools that we've started acquiring liquidity have 100 to 200,000. Like Avalanche already has 200 plus $1,000 of liquidity in, owned by the ICON network, and for some reason had magically timed the dip every time. But that's besides the point. It's worked in our favor. So moving forward, this is why we've been pushing with all these integrations. Now, balanced Hava, for Hava, we won't actually do network owned liquidity, given I think the foundations will just step in and provide liquidity in that front, which is great news from both the ICON and Hava side. So, but the Java contracts there, we wanted to get it out and test it, and just once the front end is ready, we'll go live with that. So that may be a little while away, one more month, but we'll get there. What I'm excited to talk about is, okay, so I've given the spiel about the smart contracts and what we're doing. The deployment, and I don't know if I've mentioned this. So with ETH and layer 2s, because of the cool way Balance operates at the hub and spoke model, what we're going to do there is we're actually going to deploy on all these chains here at the same time. So we'll go live on all four at once, just smart contract, and we'll start acquiring ETH on all these chains. And because what happens, as you know, is we lock the asset on the chain. So we'd lock ETH on all these chains, and then messages get sent to ICON, and a wrapped version of these assets. That's how the hub and spoke model works. A wrapped version of these assets gets minted on ICON and adds to the LP. So rather than having an LP for ETH, Arbitrum, ETH Base, ETH Optimism, all the ETH will sit in the one LP, even though we're locking it in different chains. So the perks of this is we can offer trade. So the more ETH we acquire, we have more range to offer more delivery points for ETH to get delivered. You want to swap ICX, you can swap it into Ethereum, but have it delivered on mainnet, Base, Optimism, Arbitrum, and we can expand if other, layer twos suck up a lot of, get very popular. But the best part is, yes, you have four chains, but that one unified pool. So when we get 2-3 million, your trade, your slippage and stuff like that, we're providing a great service to the user and not losing, through slippage and stuff.
This is is this like the definition of ICON as a liquidity hub? Because of Balance having all the core contracts and liquidity pools on ICON, using Xcall to deploy hub and spoke on different chains, that's what makes this possible.
Yeah, exactly. And so, as a user, you may be thinking, oh, so what happens if, like, there are a few shortfalls here. Like, if there's a lot of activity where users are trading from injective to ETH, say, some crazy meme coin. Base has got all the rage with meme coins at the moment. So Solana, but let's use Base at the moment. Injective users want to swap their injective to Ethereum and get it delivered on Base. Yes, they're getting the sweet liquidity that if the 2 million LP of the ETH, but there's only so much ETH that can be released on Base because that's how much is locked on that chain. So events like that, what would happen is a user would not suffer slippage because there's less ETH. It's just they would only be able to get a set amount of ETH and then would have to pick another chain to get delivered. Now, this is a worst case scenario, and there's already stuff we're doing in the background where we could have auto balancing kick in where, certain assets get low on different chains, it automatically. But I don't want to jump ahead. Like our first implementation of this will do this for Ethereum, and we'll follow something very similar for BTC. So, try to pull in BTC securely from the Bitcoin blockchain, which is a separate beast in itself. But also, like maybe something like some of the layer 2s, like there's a few EVM layer 2s that are gaining traction once BTC officially releases this BVM implementation. We should see a lot of EVM side chains and things like that to kick off on from Bitcoin, and we'll be able to actually go, yep, this looks like a stayer, a winner. Let's start acquiring liquidity of Bitcoin on this layer 2. And it comes into the same LP. So if we've got 1 million here, 1 million, we suddenly start to amass this awesome liquidity and provide great rates to potential traders, etc. Yeah, so I'm super excited about like the ETH implementation. I really love that because that makes us I'm just excited to get, we've gone, David, we've shrunk, and I'm never going to sit here going, ICON, oh yes, we're so far. Yeah, we all know we've shrunk as a chain, where I would definitely say laser focused in a key execution, which is balanced, because highlighting everything I've just said, Balance shows how to use Xcall, and it provides a perfect use case. And now we're getting on many chains, which I'll give you a bit more alpha, David, something that's not on the board here and something we'll see go through CPS. So I've given you this example of how we do ETH. You know how Balance works. The more chains we get connected on, now suddenly all these different assets can swap between them. When we're on Sui, we'll be able to offer Sui native swaps with IBC and EVM chains, which is pretty cool. So all these separate language chains, including Stellar now is in the works, that they're going to have this cool network flow. And then the next part that is very cool about this is part of Balance is bnUSD, right? So suddenly we also then offer this value unlock for Sui, for Stellar, for Avalanche, where they can lock their tokens and mint bnUSD, right? Like that's a cool. That's what Balance
why is that a value unlock?
Well, because I've got a stash of various chains tokens, and now I can, instead of staking it, I can take it and mint bnUSD and like unlock a certain percentage of its value and go and acquire more. Like in real world terms, like I can take my house that I have to now and go to the bank and plead and beg, and they'd make me fill out these forms and blah, blah, blah. Now, same principle, I can take my stash. I don't have to go to anyone. I just go to Balance. Here's my stash. Give me this much percentage. I know I'll get liquidated if I'm irresponsible, but now I can go and do some amount of whatever.
It's like it accelerates the economy essentially, because it unlocks the value by bringing bnUSD into the mix.
But so that's, and then bnUSD, obviously part of this is we're expanding. we're also giving bnUSD, like bnUSD will be available natively on all these chains, right? So the way it's been set up is, bnUSD will be on Ethereum, bnUSD will be on Base, not a wrapped version, none of that. It'll be like minted in that token standard on that respective chain and can move freely on that chain.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been talking to, GangsterBet and a couple other teams, some existing projects, Frames and stuff, who are on Icon, and have struggled because we hadn't gotten connected to other chains fast enough. And one of the unique, not unique, the cool use cases were a token standard. Basically, we're creating, and this is something Venture 23 is going to put through its CPS to formalize and document in the background. We're working closely with them. Is creating this new token standard, which is a cross-chain token standard. So the same way bnUSD works, right? It's minted natively on all the chains. At the moment, you've got balanced, and we've got these LPs, and everyone can do these cross-chain swaps and get their tokens delivered natively on their respective chains. You can't get ARBX on BNB because it would be a wrapped version through balance. And that's not a service we're promoting or wanting to do. We want to give the users one asset to another asset. Now, bnUSD is that, though. bnUSD can be native on every chain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I want to give that ability to all our existing projects. Well, you can go and launch on any chain you want, and you migrate to this new token standard.
Mm-hmm.
And now your chain, your token, if balance is on there, you can have a 1 LP pool and be on any chain you want. And it's in case of that example, ARVX on BNB, you're not going to mint ARVX. You could, like Crown, could launch on Sui, on Avalanche, on BNB, and do cross-chain swaps with the 1 LP pool. Which is, and everyone knows, like some of these project teams that build, the biggest expense for them is how do they bootstrap liquidity? And suddenly you go, well, okay, you've got one chain. Every time you expand, you're bootstrapping the same LP expanding across every chain. This is quite a, it's a big sell. Like
and I can see I can see how so it's all powered by Icon cross-chain tech, but I can see how if balanced wasn't sitting there as a fundamental building block, all the other like cross-chain tech couldn't be unlocked. Like you need your fundamentals in place, and I guess again that's why the balanced enshrinement is such a great move that kicked off at the beginning of this year, and we're in April. And it's moving. I think it's something to be excited about.
Exactly. And you said it perfectly. Could not. You linked it perfectly. Great. And this answers, I think, Steve, community member, much respect. Should answer one of his questions of how these pieces come together. So this is a great example. Balance. These messages, the standard has come out thanks to the bnUSD hub spoke model, and now deploying it's like, yes, okay, we can actually create this into a token standard and formalize it further. So
and more importantly, it's actually happening.
Oh yes.
So like like what I'm alluding to is right now when you're looking at this board and you're seeing these names pop up with like cross-chain connections and integrations, it's not just a connection that's being built on a tech level to just sit there, but it's getting actioned by apps, in this case balanced, like leading the charge. And when you talk about the possibilities for this token standard, kind of like balanced native or Icon native token standard that would be interchain, one liquidity pool on the Icon Liquidity Hub. And then in the same sentence, you mentioned that through CPS, this is actually in progress or being built or being worked on to get the proposed, I'm guessing.
Yes.
So that's another layer to this. Like it's the train's going toot toot, and it's on its way. Okay. So, is that the alpha? Was that the alpha?
I think no, that is the ETH alpha.
I would assume
and
so.
The IRC. Yep. And okay, so I did say little things sometimes get in the way. So here I'll share something. Post the workshop. Obviously, you get everyone together, see face to face. There's a lot more conversation stuff, and towards the end of it, me and Anton were strategizing, okay, what are we going to do next? Because obviously we know where things are at in terms of code ready to deploy. And we're just talking through what we can get deployed. And it's like, yeah, let's get Ethereum. Let's do it. Let's just get that out. And I know I was quite pumped. It was the night. The next morning, we left, and after 24 hours flying, whatnot, get home, see a message, can't do ETH. I'm like, what? Why? Or was it on the day? I forget. But it turns out, like, we're ready to go with ETH, but because the symbol is in the contract for Icon Bridge, we couldn't launch balance. So this is what I mean by these who would have thought to go, oh, crud, this is going to be a potential blocker. So that stalled the launch, trying to get ETH out the door. And now we've just been working through in the background a seamless migration process for this to happen. But for that to happen, it's like, we work through it, then obviously build it, test it on testnet, do everything before we do the actual migration. And that's kind of a frustrating bit. Those are the things that get me agitated. Like, it's just unfortunate certain things like that happen that become a small blocker that we have to dedicate time and resources to just get through. So everything's not all happy. Look at us killing it. Some things,
it's hard work, Fez, and we understand, Fez. Just breathe.
Hey, it's not me. It's the guys. Like, I get frustrated, but it's like guys like Anton and the entire dev team, majority of them at Venture 23, that do all this stuff and a lot of hard work around it. I smile and nod, and sometimes get annoyed.
You soak it up. You soak it up and deal with it. This is, I don't know if you realize, but the therapy session has started now.
Oh, thank you. It has. It's been helping. I'm feeling happier.
And if you haven't yet, Fez, you can proceed to like and subscribe to this podcast, and it massively helps us. So be sure to do that. If we don't ask, we don't get it. So on we go.
And we're not even close to finishing. Good work, David. You remembered. Okay. Now I'll just close out what the next few things. So the next phase, when we update the board, you'll start seeing, like, I'm lumping these together, right? So with Neon, Balanced, Relay, ICON GMP, I always told you, every chain we go to, we have these three fundamental pillars we need to do. If it is IBC, EVM, IBC or EVM, well, we built them. We don't have to keep rebuilding them. The process should be as simple as just deploy and testnet, make sure it all works, deploy in mainnet. And most of the cases, it never is. There's always little niggly things that, like, Neon is an EVM, Solana EVM. It works on top of Solana. The goal is, it takes advantage of Solana speed, fees, all that stuff, but it's an EVM layer, so Solidity and all that can deploy on Solana, on this potential chain that's secured by Solana, and you can bridge back and forth. Kind of, it's a different implementation, but kind of like how Nia and Aurora was a smart contract implementation of EVM on Nia, so you could build and do all the crazy EVM things. So this was pinned. We're actually working with the team, and they love the idea of us getting balanced. This is something we should talk about as well. But they love the idea of balance and the connection and the on and off ramps it gives them. So we've been working with them. It's meant to be a simple tick and deploy, but it's turned into a few niggly things that are happening with the relay and the messages not. But we're working through it. So that's what this piece is. Then Hop Chain, everyone knows what the Hop Chain is, composable finance. It's taken a bit longer than anticipated, but I do feel this is worth it, because at the end, we will be able to move ICX through the IBC ecosystem. And if you're familiar, if you use IBC right now, you can move injective, say, to Osmosis, and you can just move it around, like, to Neutron stuff, wherever you want, and it follows a certain token standard, and that's why it's kind of front end, it's seamless, let me say. Front end, it's seamless over IBC. So when this is done, it will give Icon that. Like, we'll be able to move ICX through their token transfer application, get it on Osmosis paired with Osmo, and start pushing that just to get ICX into other ecosystems. So
Yeah.
uh,
So
we're there.
when other ecosystem eyes fall on what Icon is doing and how ICX burn is connected to balanced performance, and if they like it and they think, hey, they're onto something here, they can actually go and purchase it on Osmosis or an IBC DEX, which right now people are still asked to come to Icon to get your tokens or go to a centralized exchange, which there's a big group of crypto that does neither.
Yep, exactly. And not just that, like, so you could buy it on Osmosis. And again, every part of this requires work. We're just doing the work that infrastructurally we become compatible, and we're taking care of the token transfer service application that needs to be built on the Icon side. So we're actually building that as well. And we'll get the token noted on a couple of their transfer service bridges. In IBC, like, there's various transfer services they offer for token transfers, but it doesn't mean if you're listed on one, it's available on all of them. We actually would have to go, and all of that requires work. So one thing at a time. This will enable us to then do stuff like that. So if this user sees they go and buy on Osmosis, then they can literally, once the work's done, they could withdraw and transfer straight to Icon and hold it in an Icon wallet, or just keep it seated in their IBC wallet. Like, this is the kind of stuff like we're basically making IBC implementation true IBC thanks to this, and that's why it's taken. Look, when I say it's taken time, we're active resource time. We don't have a bunch of people working on this. It's more we're on testnet, and now we're letting it be on testnet to make sure the relays, everything just stays running, stress testing, things like that, and gathering data. Rather than, there's no rush to get this to production, because like in the past, we have rushed things because I wanted to get stuff to production. And you would have remembered a few dev updates ago, the month was very slow because we were working on all these relay bugs and things we found only once we got to production. So in this case, we do have a bit of luxury of taking our time. And I've felt personally, and the team have felt like some of these other pieces with balance and the relay, and those were more critical to get out and start to acquire liquidity. So that's where we've been focused.
Yeah.
Okay, and then proof of liquidity. So I'll leave this as a bit of a surprise for next time, but at this point, we don't have the ability to give ICX as incentives to LP pools. Okay, so what I'm saying here is we've built with NOL where we can give ICX and acquire the entire LP of the user, so it's owned by the network. But one feature we don't have is to be able to give a bit of ICX. So right now, how we give balance to certain LPs. Come give you, and here's your balance tokens. Like, if we wanted to do that for ICX, we actually can't. There's a bit of work that has to happen, and infrastructurally, like the contracts and all that work is part of this piece.
But you're saying we are now well equipped as a network to buy liquidity, but we cannot rent it. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Isn't renting liquidity something we don't want to be doing? Because once you stop renting it, it disappears.
You're right. It is something we don't want to be doing. I think there's a fine line between opportunity cost. What kind of liquidity can you rent if it's worth the payment?
Yeah.
So,
sometimes it is worth it to rent it. I just, the way I put it is like, very harsh and straightforward. Like one thing is bad, one thing is good. The reality is it's somewhere in the middle. Sometimes it makes sense to rent liquidity, especially if you want a lot of it on the short term to bootstrap some sort of launch or some sort of promotional marketing activities where, you really want to incentivize external users to come in and have a look. That's when you would want to rent the liquidity. Whereas if you're looking long term, if you don't have a purchasing plan for liquidity in place, that could break you up. We are lucky enough that the Icon network is all set up to purchase liquidity. I'm guessing we'll look at the network owned liquidity in a bit. Like we can open up that website. Yeah. Cool.
I think you touched on an important point. So the proof of liquidity, originally a while back, you may have heard me. S-Arch. Archway is a great example. You would have noticed we paired bnUSD with S-Arch. Okay. Now, S-Arch is a staked representation of Arch. Now,
Mm-hmm.
on further analysis and just research and stuff, we deemed it that if the ICON network is going to be spending a fair bit of its emissions to acquire other assets, so it's back those emissions up, we need to try and reduce our risk as a network. Okay, so what adds risk? Like anything cross-chain is a risk in itself. Wrapped assets would be a risk.
Mm-hmm.
Staked assets potentially are a risk. Why?
Right.
Because anyone who's giving you the liquid staked asset form, you're dependent on that party. So if in this case something happened to liquid finance for whatever reason, or you're holding ETH, ST, ETH, whatever, this represents everyone. Like if something happens there, that's an additional risk because now, bam, your asset could be worthless because there was a other party that managed this. So on our side, that's why you see with BNB and Arbex, it's like, well, let's just stick with native assets for the ICON network because at least there's one reduced risk factor there. And then we solve this other problem. We can offer native to native swaps and make sure gas. So no user who swaps to a new chain ends up with an asset that they can't do anything with because they don't have gas for. So proof of liquidity, if you're following Bear Chain, there's a few things. It's a huge narrative push. We've just kind of built this with a simple implementation in mind. Is the network is doing this, but what if we rewarded users for created separate LPs where there were staked assets in there? So staked ICX and staked RVX. So suddenly, we're getting these staked assets from an LP.
So,
That's the goal around it. But
so you're saying we do want the LPs with the staked assets. We just don't want ICON Network and all ICX holders to be exposed to the risk of that. So
bingo.
what we'll do is we'll rent that particular liquidity from the users so they can deal with that risk according to their own risk appetite. But the ICON Network is safe, and all ICX holders hold a more stable
bingo.
asset.
And the end of this the final output, how we do this, is to be determined still, because there's a bit of research and analysis going on. But that's why I zoned in. This particular feature will allow us the ability for ICX to be given on top of balance to LPs. How we use it and stuff, we can determine and get closer to when it's ready. But it's just having this ability. So if there is a way for us to, for little effort, rent a ton of liquidity that would generate a ton of volume for balance, we have that option. So we can slap some balance reports, we can slap some ICX, and bam, attract major liquidity to an LP and make some noise.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then the rest of it is super simple. The SWI stuff. So I broke up the SWI stuff in 3 pieces. Main reason I'm doing 3 separate. I don't know why. I need to fix it. I didn't have any rationale to this.
You just gave us a lecture on the 3 components when we go cross-chain. There's the balanced contracts, the relay, and the ICON GMP. Look at that neon Solana EVM card on the testnet column.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, man, I understand this board now. I can read technical dev updates. And then you go along and you split them all up into separate cards.
Look, honestly, the reason why I've done the separate ones is because they're happening, like certain pieces are further along. Like the EVM, remember I said that work's done, so we're just testing it all together. But the SWI stuff, for example, we're translating.
New language.
Yes, exactly. That's why. But then I realized I didn't follow the same format for Stellar and Stacks because they're new language. And anyway,
what language is Stacks? Stacks is a Bitcoin layer 2. Very exciting upcoming narrative. A lot of eyes on Bitcoin these days. What language is that?
I can't remember. Something starting with C. I got to go to there's information. I just know it's a different language.
Maybe post in the comments.
Okay. I'll find it and put it in. But okay. I think that's enough. Is there anything else, David, with the board? Do you feel? I feel like I've ranted.
No, you've covered it right to left. Lots of information packed in this episode. So listen back to this on half the speed. If you struggle to follow along. And if any questions, like join the ICON Discord or the Ion Icon Telegram channel. is a place where Fez does like to elaborate and talk about some of this stuff as well. Am I right?
Oh yeah, the Icon Discord. Yep. Or I'll note the questions and then talk about it for 40 minutes on this session.
and the Ion Icon Telegram channel.
Oh yes, of course. Sorry. Yes, actually, a few people come in. It's not in its heyday, but definitely, if anyone ever comes in there and asks a question, no matter what it is, we make it a point to answer. And some people ask some Parramatta questions. It just so happened that evening, me and David got to meet a fair few folks at Parramatta, and that's why it took a couple of days. But we went and asked some of these questions to get some answers. So yeah, nothing's, as long as it's constructive, we will answer it.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we then move on to the next tab in our tabs section? What is what's this, Fez? What are we looking at?
Well, look, David, you guys have been plugging away, revamping, adding features, doing a whole bunch of cool stuff, and I thought we haven't really taken the time to talk through some of the stuff that y'all are building, and by y'all I mean the folks in the growth team, what they're doing in the background to try and improve things. So I thought, why don't we show this cool ecosystem page that's been built, and then talk through some of the other pieces you're doing that we can't share yet visually, but we can give it some insights.
Excellent. Yeah. This is a bit of a revamped ecosystem page on the icon.community website. So the website itself has been simplified to kind of match our 2024 strategic direction and narrative. So the cross-chain tech, the enshrinement of balance, see, that's all different than what we were doing 2 years ago. So we just revamped the ecosystem page to reflect this, and something that we really want to kind of have first-time visitors understand is that this is all for the benefit of ICX holders, and the whole mission here is for all our activities to contribute to ICX burn. And I think up to 6 months ago, that was just layer 1 fees getting burned, tiny little amount. And as the bear market continued, the activity dropped, and that became less and less. And then today, we're a year further, and we have 3 avenues of burn. Now, when you go to this new burn page, you will actually be able to see the balanced burn reflected in real time. The icons like Xcall burn and the layer 1 fees burn, it's happening. It's just not being tracked and reflected on this page yet as a priority. We wanted to get the balanced stuff up there. So if you go to burn.icon.community, you can see what balanced is doing. Now, the absolute numbers of burn are what they are. Not something we're very interested in. What we want to see is these numbers grow, right? So it's all about the growth trajectory of the burn. So if you you can navigate the graph, you can click back 7 days or 28, and you can swap between daily and cumulative burn. There's also a dark mode to this page. See, and these were things that community members requested the second that we dropped this page. They were like, oh, can we get this? Can we get that? Which is fun because we can say, you know what, let's have a look and see if we can. And the answer is yes, sir. About the burn, there's something interesting happening here. What you see, if you look at the graph, you'll see that there are bars here on the daily burn. That's the amount of ICX that got burned on that day. And then bottom left, you've got fees pending burn. So there's a little if you hover over it, you'll get some information on that. So that those are fees that are currently being unstaked. So they are in SICX. They're being unstaked such that they become ICX, and then they get burned. Now, unstaking SICX through balanced is not a standard 7-day waiting process because it depends on the ICX/SICX pool on balanced. It's dependent on people entering and exiting their SICX positions. You know how people can swap ICX to SICX instantly. There's a fee there, but you don't have to wait those 7 days. But it also works the other way around. So when people decide that they have a big bag of ICX and they want to stake it, then a lot of fresh ICX comes into that pool.
Mm.
SICX goes out. So when that happens, a bigger bag of SICX goes out. So if we have a lot of SICX in the queue waiting to get unstaked, and one day a big player comes in with a big bag of the other asset, it speeds it up. And that's why it's kind of a variable unstaking period through this balanced mechanism with the pools. And that's why you don't see like one line on this burn chart. You'll see some days a big burn. That's because a lot of, I guess, ICX came into that pool. A lot of SICX got unstaked that day instantly, and that's why we could immediately burn it. And sometimes there's nothing because we're waiting for it to get unstaked. So those are kind of like, that's the difference between those bars where you see what has been burned and the fees pending burn. It would be ideal if it was more linear, so you could, completely see, I guess, the progress, and possibly something we'll build into it at a later point. But right now, we're just quite happy that we can show result. We can show that the whole board that we just talked through, everything there, the end of the day should reflect in these graphs, like the transaction volume. We want it to go up. We want more assets listed, more bigger transactions, more fees, more burn. So that's that. Then on the same page, scrolling down a bit, is the network owned liquidity that we talked about earlier. The ICON network is purchasing liquidity. So we've got a certain amount of emissions that get directed to purchasing assets for liquidity. So we own this. Everyone who holds ICX owns this liquidity. And as it's put there, this liquidity is used as working capital in balanced DEX operations. So what that means is this liquidity is deployed into balanced, and users can swap in between tokens, in between chains, using this liquidity. So that's really what's happening here. On the day that we decide that we're done with it, we can sell all the liquidity off, get our ICX back, send it to the burn room. But not right now, because we want this, right? And as we can see now, there's 3 liquidity pools that are benefiting from this ICON network owned liquidity. But there's going to be more, right?
Yeah. Now, as we talked about on the board, ETH, generally all the chains we're targeting, those Apex assets, is what we'll keep buying.
Yeah.
And I think, like, one of the points you said, like, it can buy, yes, at any point we could decide to swap this back into ICX and burn it. At this point, like, if we're successful, I don't see that ever happening, because the liquidity will be generating enough revenue that we would just first reduce our emissions completely, and then the liquidity itself will be generating so much revenue and burning ICX that would be success. That would imply it's been successful. If we went the other way, it would imply that the strategy hasn't been successful.
Because the liquidity pool is actually working for the ICX holder in 2 ways. When balanced users make trades, a portion of the fee goes directly to ICX burn, but a portion of the fee sticks and stays in the liquidity pool. So the liquidity pool grows as trades occur. But because the ICON network owns that liquidity, that's ours as well. So ICX is getting burned on every trade, and the liquidity pool is growing and earning money on every trade. So that works twofold. There's a last part that goes to the balanced DAO, actually. So that's for balanced operations, or DAO decision making, I guess. So we're looking at nearly the first million in ICON network owned liquidity. That would be a special moment, though. With the volatile markets these days, you never know if you're going to celebrate that benchmark, and then you wake up in the morning and you're back down 100K just because some major asset took a dump.
Let's hope we get to celebrate it a few times.
Millions.
Millions.
We did it again. Told you.
One thing I actually wanted to call out, like, so we got this working capital generating revenue. Now there's some of the things that aren't on the board that we're looking for. I'm going to do a very quick future state. Okay, so future state, we will optimize how this liquidity is used and balanced through concentrated liquidity. And if users didn't know that, like it's becoming very common. Uniswap v3 implemented this. It's not a common feature for cross-chain like ThorSwap and stuff. They don't have it because it is a bit of a complicated beast where suddenly, for us particularly, actually, no, we have to translate it really in Java. So we need to pick the right model. It's been battle tested now. Basically, we can make the amount of $1 million, the money we have in these LPs, far more efficient, where slippage is fraction of what it would be at the moment, the way the current LPs are set up. Thereby, you need less liquidity, but also when you have more liquidity, it's generating far more revenue. So you earn far more fees because of a lot of trading's happening there. So that's one. But one of the unlocks this gives us as an ICON network, and I want to be very clear here. This is a year away. Okay, not concentrated liquidity. This next part that I'm talking about, a year away. But I want to give a bit more of a future glimpse. So we have this liquidity, we have this capital working for us. And thanks to concentrated liquidity, we will actually be able to make the liquidity work for us in two ways. So once that feature's up, the next feature we can build out is we can actually then use some of this liquidity that the network owns and in the background have it staked, like run a validator or stake it to another node for other networks, for Arvex, for
Right.
Sui, for etc. And that liquidity is also generating network staking rewards and getting it fed back into the LP, or percentage of it is burning ICX. What that does is at this point not relevant, but what I'm trying to say is like this liquidity now has a twofold revenue generation for the ICON network, which is going to lead to burning. But again, I want to reset expectations. This is work that's planned. We need to finish these critical pieces, make sure everything's functioning, and then this is a natural progression of a feature we will build because it makes total sense. Like it is literally like we don't need to, apart from development time, we have the capital there to work for us.
Yeah, that's actually quite yeah.
I get super excited.
I now that you're saying this, like I knew this. You've told me this, and big fan. It's all about capital efficiency. So with the same amount of money, can you do more? And concentrated liquidity is, such a great example. And I remember watching a Finematics YouTube explainer on concentrated liquidity when the Uniswap v3 model got launched. We're talking 2 years ago, I guess. I'll share that in the comments below and in the Ion Icon Telegram group. That is a great explainer on what concentrated liquidity is and how it makes the money that you have work for you 10 times as hard. So we don't have to go out and buy more. No. We're just making tweaks to the engine, which is going to make it run harder and faster. And actually what you're saying is, further down the line, there's another way to get even more efficient with capital and contribute to the ICX burn even more. So that would be a future step. But we know with development, timelines, there's hurdles, there's stuff, there's unforeseen stuff. So yeah, it could take, you say a year, it could be 8 months, it could be 16 months.
Yeah. It's just potential. Like there's a ton of features we need to build out.
Yes.
I think the biggest thing is like we get 8 to 10 to 12. I keep saying 8, but I think it's close to 12 chains if you include layer 2s. We get that foundational setup, and then there's enough liquidity to kind of start pushing for users. So that push comes in gradually, because right now, say for example, you don't want to get all the Arvex community going gaga and there's barely any liquidity for them to trade and slippage, etc. I'm not saying we shouldn't be actively promoting. I'm just meaning, we don't have a front end. There's just we're just there. We're just so close, David.
Take it easy.
What's next?
We've got another week. We've got another episode to do. Maybe keep some bullets in the chamber.
Okay.
You know what? I think we should just quickly look at that balanced how-to page, because it's just amazing. and then we call it a day because we're on the 1 hour mark and our listeners are tired. They need to go to bed. The dishes have been done. The dog's been walked.
Remember, David's stopping the alpha. That's all. Just
This is
I'm kidding. I'm
cliffhanger.
kidding.
This is a cliffhanger, podcast cliffhanger. We're looking at the how page on balance.network. So this is a beautifully designed page that kind of explains this super complex stuff that you can do with Balanced. I guess if you want to scroll down and talk through it real quick, otherwise let listeners know that it's balance.network/how. That's HOW. That is the page that you can send to your family and friends whenever they ask, like, what is it that you're doing up in your room all day? Just send them this and say no more.
Generally, people tend, like, I was default go to app. I would never observe anything, but every page is actually amazing. And I didn't even realize I've always now, my default is go to app or stats. And I never actually clicked on the how to, but thanks to the newsletter that went out recently, David, I was like flicking through some of the points and I saw this and I clicked on it and it showed me this and I was like, I didn't even know. Now, I don't want to spend more time on it. I think you scroll through, it explains every point in great detail. I did want to close, I know we said there, I did want to close on this. I think, not going through everything in the stats page, I wanted to close on, where is it? Is it performance, current holdings, performance? This. We'll leave it here.
You're on the stats page. You scrolled all the way down.
Actually, go on to stats and then performance details. So if you go stats, scroll down, and you got the enshrinement, you got all this stuff, and then there's performance details and the holdings. So I clicked on that and then scrolled all the way down because I wanted to show that our stability fund now has $715,000 or 600. What is it? April 10. Oh, yeah, 11. So $715,000 of treasury bills. So in this case, yes, it's imbalanced. So these are T-bills. They're yielding 5.35% at the moment. Half the revenue this generates burns ICX. This is external money, nothing to do with trading. It's just sitting there dormant, and it's earning yield that is burning ICX. So I thought, let's close it there. I don't know if people realize, like, I don't know, I get super excited. This has nothing to do with crypto bros trading. We're not trying to create this next meme coin or whatever stuff that's going on. This is
real world assets.
Nailed it.
So just a real quick calculation, Fez. The maximum limit there for the treasury bill exposure is 1 million, and we're on our way there with another 5% growth over the last 24 hours. So let's say we hold $1 million worth of this treasury bill. You mentioned that they yield 5.35% annually. So that's okay. So that's $53,500 per year.
Yep.
Of which half goes to ICX burn.
Yeah. 26.
So is by basically holding these treasury bills, which have been cross-chain imported from the Avalanche blockchain from the high yield app, holding those over simply USDC in the stability fund, we're burning another 25K of ICX with future for growth, and we haven't even done anything yet.
No. And how many months into enshrinement are we? Yeah.
We are literally 2 months into enshrinement, 1 month into enshrinement. So talk about capital efficiency. This is like another prime example. Like that money could have just been sat in the stability fund, just like the Archway USDC is right now. Like there's 158,000 that just sits there doing nothing. And we've said, hey, how can we use ICON's cross-chain framework to make our capital even more efficient again and benefit the ICX holder? Now, that's a perfect way to end this one. Thanks everyone for hanging in there with us and listening. You would help us massively if you just share the episode, leave a comment with your thoughts, come to the Telegram group, ask questions, maybe stuff that you want us to talk about next time. And then with that, I guess we say bye. Anything else you want to add, Fez, at the end?
No, what you said, if you have questions, actually share thoughts, because otherwise you don't want to keep rehashing things, but yeah, whatever you want to hear about, if we know, we're gonna preach it. So ask us. And a lot of today's episode was because community members actually asked for these details, and we're giving it. So,
Perfect. Okay, well then we'll spin the outro tune, wave bye-bye, and see you next time. Bye.
Take care, bro. Like, share, subscribe. Not financial advice, David, as always. Like, yes, remember that guy. We're obviously super excited. We're working away, working all hours of the day to make a difference. And obviously, we're super passionate. We still care. We still love everything going on at Icon, and we believe in what we're doing. So, but not financial advice. We're just trying to get the information out there to make sure people know this is what's happening.
Are you listening, SEC? Don't come after us, please. Thank you.
Yes, they got Uniswap. We're fine. Okay.
I know.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.